Alright guys, I want to explain this Corvette C4 suspension a little bit more now. We kind of briefed on the ways to differentiate the early C4s and the late C4s. This is an early C4, and this is how you tell real quick just by looking at this. Is the factory cross member right here, and it has a flat top across here. That's how you can tell whether it's an early model, which would be 84 to 86 and a half, 87-ish, and then they switch over to a later model, and that later model will have this bump up top of the factory stamped casting like that. And this is the way people use these. They just buy them just like this, and then they put this big ugly thing in front of their car and underneath their cross member. And one of the biggest problems with the Corvette suspension is, and it's not just Corvette suspension in general, it's anything with a rack and pinion. The rack and pinion is right in the way where a normal old school muscle car will have tie rod and drag link that comes across. It's way down here. The rack and pinion has to go straight across, which creates this big problem of where to put the motor. And especially with the Corvette, this pressure port right here goes straight up and down, and if you need to put your motor farther forward, this is right in the way. That's right on the bottom of the oil pan. The rack is really wide. The pivot points are out very far on the rack and everything as well. So instead of utilizing this like everybody does, that's getting scrapped. We're not going to use that at all. We're going to make something completely better and better designed and better engineered than the factory did it, utilizing only the upper and lower control arms and the spindles off the Corvette. The rest is all custom made, and we're going to make it work better and package better than the factory did. So we're going to bring this to the scrapyard. We're going to finish this all up. This is going to be a sway bar mount right here. So the factory had a goofy sway bar mount that sat over here. Really stupid, ugly bushings that these are the factory end links and everything that went on here on just some goofy aluminum plate like that. We're eliminating that goofy aluminum plate. Those scrapyard. These are going to be our new sway bar end links. We got our new shock mounts that are on there. We got our QA1 shocks. Very, very important, your shock selection. QA1 makes one of the best shocks out there for the buck, and you can get them in a single adjustable, which these ones are. If you're into drag racing, I would highly suggest you go to a dual position adjustment. And what that means is your dampening control. So, and if you've ever been to any kind of gym that has a rowing machine that has hydraulics or anything like that, this is how the resistance is changed. So you have all these different positions, and let's loosen that up all the way once. So we'll put that. So this is just controlling the compression, but it does the compression and the rebound at the same time. And let me show you how this works. So we'll loosen all that up, and we'll push up on this. And you can see I can lift it up and down fairly easily. Got a little bit of resistance to it. The resistance is coming from the rubber bushings. Now we'll click in, let's say 4 or 5 clicks on that. I'll go, I literally can't even, I can barely lift up on that. So that's how much 4 or 5 clicks can change. Now that makes a huge difference on how your car handles right there. And so with drag racing, it's a whole different ball game. You really want the dual control on it because you want your front to be able to drop down as fast as possible and control the compression as you're going down the track, so it doesn't just let your front end down. It keeps that weight transferred to the back, and as you're coming down the track, comes down really slow. So normal everyday driving, single position adjustable shocks is just fine. Even an autocross situation, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference with the dual controls, but drag racing you definitely do. Huge difference. Shocks are everything. If your tire's not on the ground, you don't have the control. That's what the shock is doing, is it's keeping your tire on the ground. It's keeping it planted so it's doing something. And I want to show you guys what else kind of happens and kind of give you an idea of how much stuff this is in entirely the most complicated system on a whole car. Any given car is the front suspension. It's absolutely crazy the stuff that is going on, and it's really hard to set it all up because you have arcs and you have migrating arcs and you have constant change of positioning, which changes your caster camber. So your caster is the amount of degrees the spindle is tipped backwards. So if you were looking from the side, center of ball joint to center of ball joint would show you the tip back on the spindle on it. It leans your tires into the corners like this. If your spindle is straight up and down, it does this. Your body rolls and your tires are actually pitched the opposite direction that you want them to. That's what caster does. So now we go into camber. Camber is the amount of lean to your suspension. And the lean to it, which has tipped your top ball joint tipped in, would be your negative camber. And you want that in an autocrossing situation, but you don't want that in a road car because it'll wear out the inside of your tires. So, and camber change through your suspension geometry. As your suspension comes up, you're going to have more negative camber to it, depending on the situation of the whole setup and everything. You'll have more or less negative camber, and you can even go positive camber if you have like a rally truck or something, a Supercross stadium truck. You'll have positive caster. The tires will be like this, so they have more travel to go through the arc and everything. So there's a lot of different ways to set this up. This is what we're doing with this whole suspension setup. This is going in this 53 Ford pickup. So we're just making this right now so it can bolt on to the factory. So we got our offset arms right here, and that's completely backwards and upside down. Let's try that again. Okay, yeah, that's better. So we got our rack clearance right here. So when our tie rods go up and down the suspension, we have somewhere for the tie rods to go. That is sleeved. Whenever I do any kind of splice like this, I will do an inside sleeve like this. We'll weld that together with a gap in between it like that. That way we get 100% penetration. We have a backer that's inside of there that we can really burn in there deep and have full penetration. So those welds could be ground all the way down flush and you wouldn't even see the welds at all. And that's the way these are right here. So the welds just disappear and you don't even really notice them. It looks like it's all one piece. This will be the same way. We're going to drill our holes right here for our core support. And then our body mounts will be back here. And those will be right to the back here, and that will mount the front of the cab right there for those tubes. So we got a little bit more to go on this. We got everything tacked in place. We got most of it finish welded. Couple of things left to finish weld, like our shock mounts here, our front pieces. We're going to get all this welded up, and then we'll show you how to install this. There's a lot of tips and tricks coming up on this. Really important. Everything that I measure off of on any given car, truck, whatever, comes off of the center line. So we've established a center line. All our measurements are going to be the same going this way and the same going this way, aside from where this rack and pinion is mounted. So the rack is actually offset to the side a little bit, but we still measure the rack and pinion center line, and we match it up with the center line right here, and our mounts are just offset to that. But going off of your center line as compared to a side mark you have over here, it's really easy to get a mark 1/8 of an inch off. Now it's 1/4 of an inch off, and you keep continuing to make the worse measurements as you go along. If you have it off of the center line, it's much easier to make sure all your measurements are spot on coming off of that center line. That way you don't multiply your mistakes as you go, and everything comes off of that center line. Much better way to do it. Lots more tips and tricks coming up, and we'll show you how to get your motor centered in there and leveled out, and this mounted on the body, leveled out, squared up, and we got a little bit more left, and we're going to get this thing in the truck. Lots more coming up, lots more fabrication, lots more tips and tricks. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the button below that says notifications. Like at minimum though. Thank you very much. See you on the next one. Don't forget to like this video. Click like, throw me a comment, let me know what you think. Ring the bell for those notifications when we get a new video. We got lots more coming up, guys. A lot of cool stuff coming up. I hope you guys are enjoying the ride.